Get off the track and into the streets. Camden Entertainment and Naira Bets are proud to present At the Post Live Surling on Saratoga, a weekly behind-the-scenes discussion throughout the Saratoga horse racing season. Hosted by nationally recognized racing expert and analyst Andy Serling. Tonight's show is also brought to you in part by Capital OTB and Timeform US. Now, live from the Parting Glass Pub in downtown Saratoga, here's Andy Serling.
Good evening, and thanks to everybody for coming out of the Parting Glass for At the Post Live. I want to thank everybody for joining us on a beautiful night in Saratoga, and my guest as well. We've got a fun show lined up, of course. We've got a tough act to follow as our second guest, but I don't know if maybe, Tom, you could be a tough act to follow. I don't know if you're familiar with I'm not going to tease you and call you Tom Wolfendale. I'm going to call you Tom Morley. I can't. It's hard to resist. Well, I have to because I answer to Maggie. Like you, I answer to Maggie. So I really don't have much choice. I have to do whatever she tells me. Tom, if you're not familiar with Tom, he's been training. How long have you been with you? You've been with us in New York for quite a while, not always on your own.
Yeah, but I started here in 2013 in April, and that was under my own license. But I've been here for 2 years beforehand. 18 months with Eddie Keneally here in New York, and so, yeah, I've been kicking around here for a while.
Now, when you trained for Eddie Keneally, when you were Eddie Keneally's assistant in New York, he used to win all the time. And since Tom left Eddie Keneally, he not only stopped winning in New York, he doesn't even stable horse in New York outside of Saratoga anymore.
I think that's a bit harsh. Come on.
Well, it's a little bit true.
We picked up some good owners when I started working here. We had some nice horses with big New York owners and big New York bred horses. That kind of made my job easy to settle in here.
Well, I mean, I don't know how easy it was, but you had your first graded stakes win just about a week ago with Have You Gone Away. That was pretty exciting. I know Maggie was excited.
Yeah, it was pretty special. Those are the days you dream of. We didn't ship somewhere. I don't want to belittle any other track in America, but it's not like we went to Delaware and won a Grade 3. We did it in our backyard. We did it at the biggest place you can do it in North America, in my opinion. It was that was as cool as it gets. It was a very special day.
And she ran terrific. I mean, she beat a horse fair and square. I mean, they both ran very well. With Paula Silver Lining, was easily considered one of a handful of the best sprinting fillies or mares in the country at this point. So it was a very big win for her. It's interesting. She's a New York bred. How did it come about that you ended up training her?
So she...
Talking to the mic, if you don't mind a little bit. Sorry. They want to hear you. They come to see you, Tom.
That's rubbish. They came to see Eric.
Came to see you.
So
afterwards, they'll say, "Thank God that Morley guy was there. At least there was some sane person there tonight."
So she's a very interesting filly. She's been kicking around in the Midwest circuit. She'd been running at Zier, Remington, Oaklawn. She'd run everywhere, and as a 5-year-old New York bred, she'd been through a number of sales. She was born here in New York. Obviously, she's a New York bred in real upstate New York, as close to Canada as you can get. Yeah, and she had changed hands a few times, and you know what? She kept kicking the door down in these stakes out there, and fair play to the team who found her, and we put some investors together and went and got her and brought her up here and effectively brought her home, and it's been a fairy tale ever since. We ran her in a race that I was very dubious about running her in because I thought a mile was too far, and she ran an excellent second to Bar of Gold of John Kimmel's. And honestly, I don't think either of those fillies wanted to go a mile at all. I think they were just far superior animals to the rest of the horses in the race. Came back and won a New York bred stake very easily, and then, when you get a filly like that on your hands who has won multiple stakes but doesn't have graded earnings, then you go off to the graded earnings. And so to beat that door down the first time of asking was very special. It was very cool.
Well, sure. I mean, you have a chance to make the Breeders' Cup, and I mean, obviously, I would imagine you're considering the Ballerina and/or the Gallant Bloom for her as prep, as final, maybe final preps even for the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, now we've got to be thinking about the Breeders' Cup. But there were really only 2 Grade 1s for her for the rest of the year. One of them's here at the end of the month is the Ballerina. She's obviously shown that she runs very well over this track. We could go back to Belmont as the Grade 2 at the beginning of the meet down there as well, but she's already won a Grade 2. So now you've got to be thinking higher again. She proved something quite interesting to me. When I was going through her PPs, I was a little bit worried about coming back here in the Honourable Miss, because she was coming back in 24, 25 days or whatever it was. And I looked back through her PPs, and she's actually backed up quite quickly a couple of times and very successfully. Now I'm going to be asking her to do it 3 times in basically 8 weeks, and that's a big ask. But she has come out of the Honourable Miss in phenomenal form, and
in Saratoga, you got to take a shot. It's a grade 1. You don't get many chances.
We look at it in a different way in England, and when fillies and mares especially are hot, you run them. When they're doing well, you run them.
Well, more people should run their horses more often in their fields and more competitive racing. How did you end up? Your father is your father's a trainer. Is that true?
My uncle's a trainer.
Okay.
Yeah, so. A lot of my family involved in racing from home. My father has owned and bred horses. My uncle owns and breeds as well. Another one of my uncles was a very, very good flat trainer, trained in England, trained a lot of horses for Shadwell. I have a cousin who's a Grade 1 winning jump trainer as well. So I was kind of born into it. I'm one of 5 boys. I guess there was always a chance that one of us was going to go down the equine route. None of the others did, thank God. Well, they enjoy it. But
why did you decide to come to America and leave the UK or Europe in general?
No idea.
Really? You wanted to meet Maggie?
Joking.
You came for Maggie?
Yeah,
you didn't know,
but
you
Maggie on
you were
telly,
drawn
and
by
I was
her.
like, I got to go over there and try and get her.
You and a lot of guys.
Yeah, the other guys.
Somehow make it work somehow, right? The rest of them we had arrested.
No, I guess
only a few of them.
I guess I was very lucky when I did the Darley Flying Start program for 2 years, which is an incredible opportunity. Straight out of school, and then I worked for Jeremy Nazida for 4 years. Now Jeremy's a guy, an Englishman who's trained in California and came here. Went home and has been training at the highest level. He went to work for Godolphin and then has been training at the highest level in England for well over a decade now. But the one thing he's not afraid to do is come to America. So he bought Wilco, he bought Awesome Act out here. He
came to the Inner, Jerry, to see it with Awesome Act.
Yeah. And we won Jamaica's. It was, and this was all while I was there, and it was very eye-opening for me. Some of the time I was put on the airplane to bring the horses out here. I never got to stay. I bedded them in, made sure they were okay. Jeremy flew out, took over the training. I went back and trained the rest of the horses in England. But that's just the way it goes when you're an assistant. So, but he said to me, after I'd been with him for 4 years, he said, you've got to go to America. You need to spend at least 18 months there before you set up on your own. And I came here, and I think within 6 months, the seed had been sown that I wanted to stay. I'd done Florida, I'd done Keeneland, I'd just moved into Churchill, and I was thinking, right, okay, where are we going with this? And everywhere I went, I enjoyed myself more and more and more. And it's very easy to fall in love with the game over here. It's a moving circus. It's incredibly competitive, and I'm a very, very competitive person. I do not want to sit on my laurels somewhere. And then I came to New York, and I realized exactly how tough it is. So I'd been everywhere else, and I got here, and I was like, good Lord. But that was it there and then. When I came up here for the first time for Eddie, and then we went down to Belmont, and he asked if I wanted to take over the division there, then...
I kid about with Eddie, but in truth, you really did have a lot of success with Eddie when you were his assistant. I'm not just saying because you're here. You guys won a lot of races, and I wouldn't have even known if it hadn't been for Maggie, the two of you, and you two of you getting together, because I realized that you were working for him, and you had great success together in New York.
Yeah, as I said, it's the horses that make us look good, and we had a lot of nice horses. We had good owners, and Eddie always has a very, very good team. He had 2 assistants when I was there. It was me and Brendan Walsh.
We're also doing very well on his own.
We're both doing okay now on our own. So Eddie's an exceptional horseman. He does a very good job, and I was very glad to spend a couple of years underneath him.
So how did you meet Maggie? That's what we really want to know, right?
I knew there was a reason we came.
Maggie just made a face. Must be a bad story.
I met her up here. And got rebuffed many times.
Really? You were the guy?
Yeah, I was the guy. And it took a few months to persuade her, and maybe a cocktail after one or two, and then she agreed to go out for dinner with me, and that was it. And that literally was it. It was
got a girl with less than 2 cocktails, really?
Yeah, I know.
Talk to you about that later. How that works. And you guys are expecting your first child in November.
Very exciting. Yeah, end of November. Would you?
I don't know if anybody noticed. Maggie's pregnant. That's great.
Yeah, it's
really
excited. It's really, really exciting. Incredibly exciting. end of November. So as Maggie said, she can knock out the Cigar Mile and then take 3 months off to have a baby, and she'll be back for the Gotham.
Really? Coming back for the Gotham? Good to know. Okay, I was wondering. I didn't want to ask, you know. It abandoned us all winter. So... Are there ever
better
any
than abandoning during Saratoga?
Nobody's abandoning anybody during Saratoga. Are there any ever tense moments with her working on TV where you feel any conflicts at all?
Personally, it's when she doesn't talk about a horse of mine who looks best in a paddock. No, seriously, it does. It drives me absolutely insane. It's great. She stands up there and says, Jesus, Chad Brown does such a great job, and Todd Pletcher does a wonderful job, and their horses look absolutely sensational. And I'm standing there going, mine looks the best in here by a mile. She hasn't said anything about it. So, yeah, that's my biggest conflict.
I assume you tell her about this all the time.
Yes, all the time.
That must be really working well for you.
No, not at all.
It
hasn't changed.
It's funny because Maggie was doing Talking Horses with me one day at Belmont recently, and you had a first-time starter in. And she said she thought the horse probably needed a race, and didn't even know how good the horse was. And I made it clear in the show. I said, Maggie's not making this up. If this horse should happen to win, and she's like, no, I don't really like it. So the horse, of course, wins. The horse runs, I think, like a 50 buyer or 48 buyer to win. So she wasn't really wrong. The horse wasn't that good. It just happened to win because the horses weren't as good. And people come up to me and say, Maggie's lying on TV. She's on TV. And it's like, it's just so ridiculous. She would never go on TV and lie about one of the horses like that.
The other thing about that horse as well is she's never even seen him. He was in training up here in Saratoga, so she hadn't been around him in the barn at all. We trained him up here. He was in Florida with us. Actually, my assistant Sarah owned the horse at the time. Maggie never laid eyes on the horse. She had no idea how the horse was working. I fancied the horse. I thought he had a massive shot. And he runs in a stake on Sunday at Monmouth. But, she didn't...
Who's going to Monmouth? You going to Monmouth on Sunday?
We'll see.
Really? All right.
Maybe
we picked a third. I mean, the horse ran well. You want the horse to go well. I mean, it's sort of situation. So now I also hear, how did you fill her shoes? Because she was like the chief exercise rider for the barn. Is that not true?
Yeah, I got way better ones in.
Oh, really? Really?
No.
Really?
No. That was okay. So this was a kind of a. It was almost a more serious deal for me than it was for us as a couple. Was the idea that we were going to start a family, and I was sitting there going, Christ, I'm going to lose my best exercise rider here. So that was a very, very big deal. Replacing her has not been easy at all. I think we've put together a pretty good crew. We've just taken on another guy who's actually in the room right now. He's sitting down at the far end. Carlos, give us a wave.
Really?
Yeah.
The new Maggie?
He starts on Monday.
Nice.
He's not going to wave.
He doesn't want Maggie to know who he is.
He doesn't want to know Maggie to know who he is. He's down there. Go get him.
So
Maggie's replacement's at the other end of this table.
other than meeting Maggie up here or conning her into going out with you, what's the best part about Saratoga for you?
It reminds me a little bit about home. There's something very, very special about racing horses here. I'm a Belmont guy through and through. Belmont's home.
We all love Belmont.
And it's wonderful. But you come up here, the first time, I think, probably the best way to sum it up is the first time you walk down the horse path into the paddock with a horse every year at the meet. And the crowds are standing either side of that walkway, and the hairs stand up on the back of your neck. You literally feel like a gladiator walking into the Coliseum. This is as good as it gets, and this is where the best gather, and they bring their best horses, and this is where you pitch yourself against the best in America. And look, lots of people say Del Mar's wonderful. They haven't got a patch on us on the quality of racing. I'm sorry, they don't. So it's,
I agree.
This is it. This is where you test yourself.
I agree, and that's why winning up here is it's so difficult. You risk coming up here and thoroughly embarrassing yourself, but it's all worth it if you can have a little bit of success.
Yeah, no trainer wants to leave here with a duck at the end of the meet. It's as simple as that. If you go home and you've won a race, you've done okay. You've won one.
I agree. It's the place that we all are afraid of embarrassing ourselves, but feel very proud if anything goes well. Tom Morley, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the best of luck, of course, with the baby, and with have you on the way. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Stay with us. As we come right back, At the Post Live is brought to you by Capital OTB. Watch, wager, and win with Capital OTB.